Will Smith is a person I greatly admire. From the Fresh Prince to the King of Hollywood, his rise of superstardom is nothing short of awe-inspiring. He gave this interview one time that really spoke to how he goes after success. I'm paraphrasing here, but he says that you can be smarter than me, you have more talent than me, but if you get on the treadmill, either his competition is getting off first or he's going to die. He literally said that he would die on a treadmill before he gave up. As we reach this epic milestone in our podcast journey, that's what I've been thinking about. I mean, not dying on a treadmill, but taking it as a metaphor and go deeper into what that really means to me, what it ultimately means as we continue to move forward. One thing is for certain, we have only scratched the surface on what the startup life can ultimately be. My name is Dominic Lawson, and for the 200th time, this is the startup life. Let's begin.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Otis, you crazy mother.
All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're ready to receive some value today. And here we are. It's episode 200. First, before I kind of give you the rundown today, I just want to say, look, this is amazing. This is just an amazing ride. Like, we're here at 200 episodes and you've been listening to this show for almost 4 years now. It's kind of a crazy thing. You've been here for the amazing guests that we've had. You've been here for being on the different radio stations now around the world. Wow. Just remember, this show started in a closet. You know what I mean? And, as we always say with these milestones, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for rocking with me and just understanding that, I'm here for you. And I hope to continue to be here for you. And so on this 200th episode, this milestone episode of the Startup Life, first we'll just talk about the ride, the journey, and things of that nature, and what it's really meant. Then we'll talk about what's up next for the Startup Life, how we're gonna add some new things to the repertoire here, give you some more content, give you some more value. You've already kind of seen some of it, but we'll kind of explain it a little bit more. And then we'll take a break. And then when we come back, I'll talk about the treadmill metaphor a little bit more and what it means to me and what you can probably ultimately learn from it as well. But it looks like we're going to have a special guest with us on episode 200. If you remember, on episode 4, I had the executive producer and my lovely wife, Kenda Lawson, on the show, and she's here now on episode 200. What's up, ma'am?
Ma'am?
Yeah.
What is that for?
What's going on?
Oh, nothing much. Like, this is, like you said, it's been crazy. And it's been interesting to kind of see it. I get to see it on the front end just before, while the ideas are still being developed and
right.
The plans are being made. And then I get to listen as a listener after you've done your thing.
For sure.
So I'm both a fan of the show. And hopefully an important part of
absolutely
its existence.
I couldn't do this without you. I thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the content.
Mm-hmm. And so with that, Startup Nation, let's take flight. So let's just kind of talk about the journey a little bit. Kenda, you've been here since day one. And, from episode 100 to now 200, like a lot of changes have happened. Like a lot,
Yeah.
Episode 150, when we got Mark Randolph on the show, you know what I mean? Like the co-founder of Netflix. How bananas was that?
I don't know. Sometimes I'm still like, how do we pull this stuff off?
Look, man, what a lot of people don't know though, is that like a lot of stuff had to fall in place in order for that to happen. Like when I asked him to be on the show, I asked him to be on the show, and then I had to go through his PR people and stuff, right? I actually talked to her today. She actually left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
That's pretty awesome. Because I sort of remember him kind of saying yes, but
right.
You need to go through my PR person. It's like,
exactly.
okay, of course, this is going to be a harder sell.
Right, because Mark Randolph, he was on board. Like,
Yeah.
it was not a problem, not a game. He's like, let's do it. But the PR person was like, hold on for a minute, fam. Like, what we doing? Who are you? What's your reach looking like? This, that, and the other. And honestly, like, when I talked to him at first, this was back in September when his book had just came out, September 2019. And we didn't have the radio station. We didn't have the reach. And so I told them what the reach was at the time. And they just like, oh, okay.
It's cute.
Right. Exactly. Basically. And they were like, nah, you good. And so it wasn't until we got on the radio station, shout out to, KWAM, KWAM, AM 990 here in Memphis, Tennessee. When we told them we went to KWAM, they was like, oh, yeah, sure, let's do that. No problem. Not a game.
I mean, it's just interesting how it's like a lot of things have to fall into place, but there's always that one last piece, right?
Right.
And then it just clicks.
Right. It's like we had to leverage the reach to get the guest and then leverage the guest and the reach to get the sponsorships now that we have, on a regular basis, which has been crazy. As well.
I mean, it's been kind of cool on my end, though.
I know, right? You've been up here like,
reaping the benefits.
Right, making out like a fat cat, man.
I mean, I usually use more of this like stuff,
That's true.
Which I know it's kind of like funny because like people don't really know who I am.
That ain't true.
But it's like, yeah.
You're talking about you all the time.
I'm definitely the person that's going to use this paint sprayer.
Right.
Definitely.
Shout out to Wagner. Appreciate y'all with the Flexio Series 4000.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of interesting. I'm going to debut it because everybody's seeing your closet, but see when mine is done.
Right.
It's a whole other atmosphere in there.
That's true. So, I mean, when you think about like, not just, episode 100 to 200 now, but like even from the very beginning, like what comes to mind for you? Because we haven't talked to you on the show since, honestly, 4 years ago.
Well, I had that one episode,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
when you,
right.
You
when
had a cold
I
or
got
something.
sick, and you took over the show. Thank you for that, by the way. A lot of people have asked you to come back.
I appreciate that. I appreciate, the people who I think there's a lot of women who are just kind of like, we just wanted to hear a voice, that sort of thing.
Right.
And then of course the subject matter of it, was deeply, and it was kind of interesting how everything kind of lined up for that episode.
Right. That's true.
You don't talk about it a lot, but I guess this is going to the question you actually asked me. So let's do that.
No, it's all good.
What has really struck me is two things. One is when we started on this journey, I was really interested, as I said, in learning or listening as a learner.
Right.
We actually operate our own company. We, for everybody who doesn't know, we, Dominic and I, co-owned, managed, started, founded an education.
Trust me, they know. But go ahead.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. No.
Well, I hear it. I know it comes up. I know you talk about
again.
it when it comes up, and it's just like I don't think people understand the deeply, I'm going to say, selfish reasons for starting this podcast, which is that I'm an experienced educator, and you definitely brought finance to the table, but this whole journey has been filled with these many lessons that you have to learn. And I think the cool part for me was that, in our community, African-American people have often, just by virtue of not being at the table or not having access, like proximity to people who can answer and fill in some of those spaces, what does a winning bid or RFP look like? What are some things that I need to know going into a meeting where I'm looking for funding?
That inside track stuff.
Yes. Right. And that I always saw this as an opportunity to bring or introduce those conversations into this community and make the information readily available.
Right.
But what I ended up learning is that people who have this, who've been on this journey, who have those experiences, they're there and they're very open. Like you talked about Mark Randolph, like, yeah, let's do it. Like, yeah, you got to set it up through my PR person, but that wasn't actually like a flex, and it wasn't to put you off. You know what I mean? It was legitimately like, this is the process, but I'm actually happy to do it. And what I've found and listened and heard in so many of these conversations is the willingness to share this information to help.
That's true.
The people who are coming up after you. So that's probably been those have been the things that have struck me. Not only that, hopefully we've been able to do that we know from some of the messages and the private messages that we get that we've been able to help small businesses. Like, man, I was about to give up. I was up against this wall. I really didn't know it. And sometimes it's just, I needed to know that the founder of Netflix experienced all of these problems, that it wasn't just smooth sailing. Right. Because a lot of times when we see it on our end, it's just kind of like, oh my God, this is meteoric rise to fame. And it's like, nah, it's meteoric rise to fame 10 years in the making, right? 20 years in the making. And so it's good to be reaffirmed in that way, because so many of those weeks that there were episodes, we were in our own small business, working through problems and, conflicts and that sort of thing of our own. So it's just been really awesome. And then I'm sort of, I don't want to say a backseat driver anyway. Like I'm kind of like, I'm a back end person, I don't, it's not that I don't get to be on the mic very often, folks. I actually prefer it the other way. Well,
to be fair, we just recently got 2 mics, so
I know, and I'm actually pretty like, yeah, right. It's this one's sounding good. I got the downgraded mic. I just want to be clear about that. Don't everybody should know that information.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
He was like, my voice is silky, so I'm gonna need the.
So this is what we're gonna do. Huh? This is what we're going to do on episode 200 of the Startup
Well, see, this is why, I know. This is why he doesn't let me on the mic that
much. Right. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off right now.
No, I ain't
going
to mute my mic?
No, I ain't going to mute it. But, even when you talk about this equipment, right, think about what we use to record episode 4.
You know what this reminds me of, right?
What's that?
It reminds me of that like before and after picture of the conference.
Oh man.
And so I'm not gonna get into it. It's just like, if you just did a before and after, it's just like, man, what were we doing? But at the same time, I think it's such a great story and it's such a great visual, because it just goes to show, it's like, you shouldn't start with everything you need. You'll never figure out how to get it.
Exactly. And that's why I've always had that notion, whether it be for the startup life or even ours, that like the revenue should justify the action. You know what I mean? Like, or the activity should justify the action, right?
Okay, what he really means is that it should be over justified, and
maybe so. But
I mean, that's just, but that's good though. I really appreciate that dynamic. I really do appreciate that about you, because I think in some ways I'm kind of like, we'll jump in, we'll figure it out later.
Right.
And then Dominic's just like, nope.
Well, I mean, I think it's okay, and I think it's best, but I think it's also okay to say that I'm not, or we're not there yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs and startup founders and stuff like that aren't comfortable with that, because it's like, oh, I'm not legit, or, oh, I don't look legit, or nobody's going to take me serious, or.
And see, I think sometimes that's a matter of, sometimes you don't recognize when you're there yet. Sometimes you can be so scrappy, right, that you don't understand. It's like, all right, now it's time to kind of put down roots and invest in yourself and, do some of these other things.
Right.
So I think there's always a balance, because you might be there and then you just don't recognize, like, yeah, no,
that's true.
You're looking for legitimacy, and,
right.
and
that's fair, because because you can be so ingrained in the process that you don't take a step back and like, oh no, it's time. Now, granted, and usually if you are so scrappy it's usually, I say this, it's better for you to figure out that it's time than for some outside entity to say that you should have had this. Otherwise you would have been at the next level.
Yes, major facts.
You know what I'm saying?
Major facts.
Because like it's that's when you start to look like, oh, you ain't legit. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But so it's like that you got to kind of, I guess, step in and step out every once in a while. You're mostly in, obviously, but every once in a while,
you don't have those options in the beginning. It's if you're not in, nobody's doing anything. But no, for sure, at a certain point, it's important to like pause and reflect. That's why I like these sort of pinnacle episodes, like these what are the benchmark episodes, almost like 50, 100,
right?
And these what you usually do is just to stop and reflect and look back,
Right.
So I mean, I guess to answer your questions, like what comes to mind when I look back is just hope. Just what if we done all this, that's on the company side, that's on the media side, that's on certainly with the startup life. If we've done all this starting with nothing, well, we're not at nothing now,
Right.
So what does episode 400 look like?
Right. That's true. It's like I said, it's been a crazy ride. It's been a wonderful ride, but it's been a hard one. You know what I mean? Because like even the radio station thing, right? Like a lot of people know that like, hey, we're in 10 radio markets right now. But what you don't know is that I sent like letters to over 250 radio stations across the country. Like I literally had a list.
Or the conversations that we had about how that message was going to be structured and written and worded and
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, true enough, we're having some success. And I'm not even for to sit up here and say it's small success, but like it's been hard. It's been really hard. And so, and that's what I want to tell to not just startup founders, but in particularly podcasters. Like, there is no scenario where you just gonna create this thing and like just sit back and just watch the money pile up. Or
let me ask you this, because I think sometimes the word hard can be off-putting and not entirely descriptive. Is it hard or is it tedious? Or which one is it more?
It's more tedious than hard, but you can't dismiss the hard. And the reason I say that is, but it is more tedious because it's the constant banging your head. The hard part comes in when calluses
that you kind of form, right?
I mean,
going with the metaphor, banging against a brick wall.
I mean, there's that, but there's also the mental part. Because like after a while, man, it gets a little rough to like keep sending out those pitches, keep sending out those emails, keep making those phone calls, and stuff like that. And not just with radio stations, but like with the potential sponsors too. Like they don't know me. They don't know us. They don't know this show. Right. But, after a while, it got to a point where, we could start leveraging a Mark Randolph. We could leverage a Tom Golisano. We can leverage these emails we're starting to get from Hollywood now. It's like, hey, in the pipeline, we got, Nick Walinda is coming on the show or something like that.
So what was it like when you turned that corner and you were able to leverage the body of work?
You mean like what was the moment or how did it feel?
Like how did it feel? I mean, I kind of know what the moment is. If you want to share that, that's fine. But
I honestly don't even know what the moment is, to be honest with you, because it's like, it's honestly kind of a blur.
I don't know. It's weird. I just look at it like I can draw direct lines, to each new level of like personal. And I don't mean that. I just mean like in terms of like accessibility, right? Like I know just having Kat, from Muddies on the show in the beginning kind of is like the first.
Right. Quasi semi celebrity
like
or something like that. Yeah.
Local celebrity.
Local celebrity.
Excellent bakery.
Right.
Just
very grateful to Kat, because not only when it comes to Kat, not only was she super amazing on the show, and willingness to come on the show, but like off air, like, like super gracious with her time, she, and being like encouraging and saying, like, you can do this. This is amazing. I'm so excited for you. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? Her and Cheryl Pesci.
Right.
To be fair.
That's the next place I
Right.
was going.
Yeah.
She's kind of a like 5-timers club.
Almost. I think she got like 2 more to go.
Okay, we gotta get her back then. We gotta get her back.
Right.
But there's literally just like, these people who have just kind of paved the way. And I feel like I can draw a direct line from it's like, okay, this person. And then after that person, kind of like, hey, we had this person on. They were really great. We think you could do something like this. And it'd be pretty awesome. And then just like little by little, kind of making the way.
That's the important part. The little by little. Little by little. The little by little.
So I guess that's the thing about, I guess when you categorize it as like a turning point, it's like, but when you look back at it, you can see that it was really all these little steps.
It was. It's like, and they just build upon each other, which I know is cliche, but it just did. You know what I mean? Like honestly, the biggest turning point from between 0 and 100 was episode 70. And that's when we had Frank Cottle on the show. Frank Cottle had the virtual office business, right? But that was the first episode where a PR firm, podcast booking firm reached out and said, hey, we got this client. We'd love to have him on your show. And so that just opened up a whole new world for me. Like, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know this existed. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then from 100 to 200 now, it's been leveraging the reach, like the radio show or the radio, syndication or whatever, right? And
then at some point it just started to be like almost like now you're being pursued, and
right.
Oh my gosh, there's so much communication.
Oh yeah, like being at 200 is great, but that email thing, Jesus. It's like 15 pitches a day sounds amazing when you're not answering them emails.
And replying to them.
Right.
And then re-replying to them.
Exactly. It's like having 22 conversations going on at the same time.
But it's just interesting how the hard never goes away. It just evolves, right? It just changes.
It does. Right. That is true. It's I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But it goes to show that like there is no point going up that mountain where it gets easier or smoother. I mean, it can be, but like then you just replace those problems with other problems. Right.
I guess you just think about it as like people always like use the metaphor of the mountain, like, it's the uphill part, but technically going downhill, downstairs, all that stuff, it actually just activates different muscles, but it's equally as hard.
That's true. That's very true. You good. So I guess we should transition to what we got coming up.
Okay.
Some new stuff we're going to add to the show, stuff like that. One of those things that we've added to the show is startup conversations. So Startup Nation, this is something where it's not necessarily like a profile or like an interview. Well, I mean, it's an interview, but it's not like a profile of the guest. So basically, a lot of times there'll be something in the business world that'll happen. And so we'll bring on an expert to kind of like talk about it. Like today we had Juan Ribaldi, who is like a business, expert, Wharton educated, business expert, has this accent. I forgot the name of the Accent Advisors. He runs Accent Advisor, where he leads Fortune 50 companies and helps them like transition and stuff like that. And so today we talked about like the Washington football team, not named like that very derogatory surname anymore. Like talk about rebranding, and we talked about Amazon taking over JCPenney and stuff like that. And then ultimately we convert that into how, startup founders and entrepreneurs can kind of learn from what's going on around us. I mean, shoot. Given this pandemic, there's a lot to learn.
Right. And those are awesome because, there is a lot to learn, but they're rapid fire. So it's a lot of really, really great content that's, I think, really consumable.
Right. And it's not as long.
Right.
Right. It's also not as long. Gotcha. Sorry. Like, 15, 20 minutes long or whatever the case may be. So, no longer than that. And so you can be on the lookout for more of that content. You probably already started seeing or listening to some of that content, which has been great. We've had Alexia Alizada of Advise, and a couple other people on the show. That's been great. So that's going to be cool. Look out, for that type of content as well. I also want to do another new type of segment called Respect the Game. Because I think there's a lot of people who are, I guess, controversial in nature, but at the same time, it's like they're entrepreneurial proud. It's like you can't deny it. You know what I mean? And so I actually thought about this when it came to the young lady, the Catch Me Outside girl. I don't even know her real name, but I think she got like a $15 million deal. And so, I'm in this private entrepreneur magazine group where we talked about, is she an entrepreneur? Is she a business mind, or whatever the case may be? And most people saying no, they just totally dismissed her. Right. But it's like, she got a $15 million deal. How did she clearly leveraged her 15 minutes of fame
for $15 million. She got $1 million for every minute.
Right. Exactly. Right. And so, some of the people talking about like, Donald J. Trump, the president, right? Like, eyes rolling. Okay. But you can't deny some of the branding power that is Trump. You just can't. Look, it is what it is, but you can't. Or a Kim Kardashian.
Oh, I was about to say, are you waiting on the comment on that one?
No. Or Kim Kardashian. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yet once again, branding comes to mind. You know what I mean? So what we'll do a profile. Probably won't take long, like maybe 5 to 7 minutes or something like that. And we'll just profile some people where it's like, you have to respect the game. You have to respect that. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about. Like, entrepreneurship really doesn't care what you look like, doesn't care where you come from, stuff like that. If you got this thing that you can monetize. And
it is a really important conversation, just because I think sometimes people don't understand the nature of business.
Right.
Or because you're looking at a person instead of like this name with code behind it. We tend to expect people to be way more philanthropic and,
right.
Humanistic. And then we're sort of okay with capitalism from a corporate perspective. Mm-hmm. But, the reality is corporations are made of people, shareholders and stakeholders and,
right.
All of those people. And those people can only really be there because the company's making money.
That's true. That's very true. And so another thing I want to talk about that we're going to add to the show that I'm really excited about is some TikTok content.
We have some teenagers who are going to be kind of interested in that.
Right. So I'm not dancing. Let's be clear about it. No dancing. At least I don't think I am. Right. And we've already started, putting some stuff on TikTok, like some clips and some audiograms and stuff.
I love the audiograms. They're again, like the bite-sized pieces.
Right. Exactly. But I'm thinking like, as we maybe getting ready to prepare for a recording session, maybe I'll do some lip syncing on there. That'll be fun.
Your vocal. No, you should just sing.
No, I'm not. No, that ain't happening.
Those are great vocal warm-ups, Dominic.
Oh, I'll be warming up vocally for real. You just won't hear it.
Okay, are you just going to be saying whatever you're saying and then try to find a song that matches it?
I'm going to try to, but I'm not going to be like married to that idea because like it may be always kind of difficult to do that. You know what I mean? So what we'll do is like,
I'll do fun stuff on TikTok.
We'll do some TikTok, voice warm-ups. And I think about also kind of adding like a 60-second book review aspect to it on there as well.
Since I'm in the background, I could literally be a background dancer.
Oh my God. Nope.
Like instead of just like lurking around with a camera and like microphone.
Wow.
See?
I guess so. Nah, we ain't doing that.
Oh my gosh. No fun.
So that's what you can expect from some new content that we're going to add to the show, which I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about, this next journey of the next 100 episodes. And to be fair, it's like, we already have like 120 in the pipeline. That's not a problem. And so it's like, honestly, like we're talking about episode 200, but like episode 300 is basically done.
I know. It'd be interesting. You think it'll come faster?
Well, it actually might. because from zero to 100 took 3 years. Like
3 years.
Yeah. Or 2.5 years. 2.5 years, right? But episode 100 was last April. Right?
Yeah, so.
And so and the thing,
content meal around here.
Right. And like even with, even though this coming Monday, right? We're going to release 4 episodes on the same day because we have 4 authors who all release books on that day. And so we're going to release all 4 of those episodes on that day.
I'm excited about them. I was like, well, technically, we have some of them early. So,
well, to be fair, we're going back to the thing about the sponsorship. I do get books.
That's true. And I mean, for me, that I would have done this for just the access to books. Yes. Right. I mean, I'm
shout out to HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, HBR Harvard Business Review, Greenleaf Books, and just all of our book publishing partners for like hooking us up with all those books. You know what I mean? For the Frisbee.
See, we should have, we should have put it on TikTok, like that process of trying to take the photo with the most recent books. You guys can see how he is totally a child when trying to sit for pictures.
That's not nice. You can't be telling them people that.
Eyes closed, looking in a different place he's supposed to be. Well, are we done yet?
Well, hold on. Since we social distancing, we're doing this from home and stuff like that. We had a whole 8-year-old who's kind of bothering us while we're trying to take those pictures. That's true.
She demanded to be in the photo. Right. That's why there's like different versions of it.
What they call like your coworker now. Like the people that you live with are your new coworker.
I know. It's always our 8-year-old is that she's usually like the annoyingly optimistic one. Like she wakes up early in the morning like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a great day. And it's like, oh.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. And
wait.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What coworker am I?
I don't know. Cause we always, look. We always work for home, me and you, right?
Yeah, I understand. We've been coworkers for a long time. It's not the question. Don't skirt the question.
I'm not skirting the question.
What kind of coworker am I?
If I'm skirting the question, it's because I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what type of coworker you are. I mean, you're a great coworker in general, but if you're talking about like an archetype or something, I don't know.
Well, it's like some of our roles are kind of like clearly we work together, but we usually have our own thing, like our own responsibilities. And I know we talked about it at the beginning of quarantine. It's like, oh my gosh, I think my husband's finger guns guy.
Right. I actually talked to Shasta about that. She thought that was hilarious.
What did she say?
She's just saying like, some of the concepts in her book, and that's actually one of the episodes we'll be releasing on this Monday, October 18th.
You want to give the name of the book?
The name of the book is The Business of Friendship. Mm-hmm. And so that book is not out currently as you're listening to this, but come Tuesday is when books come out, not Monday. August 18th, Tuesday, when that book comes out, The Business of Friendship, that book will be available. But she talked about a lot of those concepts still work. And she talks about the triangle of, a great relationship. She talks about there's positivity, there's consistency, and there's vulnerability. Right. And so she just said those, some of those concepts still work even when you have new coworkers, right? And so maybe sometimes when you're with your spouse, you may have to revisit some of those things and try to reestablish some of those things. Because, we talked about finger guns guy and super patient, supervisor. He's like, who the hell is this dude? He's not patient with us here at the house. So
it's true. It's almost like grandparents or your parents when they get old and become grandparents. You see this whole other side of them.
They're the worst.
Like, wait, what?
They're the worst. Like, are you serious right now? Had I done that 20 years ago?
Right. So it's like we've always had the company, but then when Zoe was school age, she went to school. We've never co-parented and co-managed a company, right?
Right.
And often like work together like on media kind of things, right? So it's like,
you know what, that brings up an interesting
point. It's a whole
point.
new level of interconnectedness.
That brings up an interesting point, because there's a lot of people who think that when you work from home or you work for yourself or something like that, like this new normal was going to be an easy transition for it. Now, it's been easier for us than most, probably, but there was still some transitioning. You know what I mean?
Well, I think luckily that's a major thing that we agree on. We know how to go to our separate corners.
That's
know,
true.
like all right. I don't know. Sometimes like you'll be on the second floor and I'm just on the first floor. It's just like, hey, and then it's like at 6 o'clock. It's just,
hey, you're here.
How was your day?
You're here. That's true. That's true.
So, I feel very fortunate. I hope you don't mind my saying. I feel very fortunate that, you know, we have the space to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Can you imagine like if we lived in an apartment and just, oh my gosh.
Well, to be fair, we were able to do that even when we had the apartment from time to time. Like, you know,
that's true. Everybody take advantage of doors. if anybody's out here and it's like, you know, you have the same thing, it's just like sometimes you have to take advantage of doors. Like it doesn't create, like you may not physically, you may only be 10 feet away from each other, but like the door lends this sense of like peace and domain and agency. And I think that's important. I just think I'm glad we've been able to find that, you know, and really, of course, this has all been a major test of it, but luckily it was always already in place. So I do think it's probably been easier for us than a lot of people.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But I just keep it. Also, it's important to keep it in perspective. As much as it might be like, okay, a little bit maddening to see the same people, you know, all day and be in the same place and, you know, that sort of thing. I just can't imagine going through all of this alone. Like if I were single and didn't have any kids, and
that would be rough.
Yeah. I just imagine it's just so rough not to be connected and not to be able to be around a lot of people. If anybody's, you know, out there looking like that, you know, definitely, I'm sure, you know, people are looking for opportunities to connect.
Right.
And so I just think, I have these ready-made people here to talk to, and kids are never boring. You know, they always change up the day a little bit.
Them's is facts that they will.
Especially, you know, we have an 8-year-old and she's just developing her personality. And each day she's like, I did not realize she was going to be goofy. Like, is that a thing that you imagined when Zoe was like 4 and she's all serious about like schedules and stuff, that she was just going to turn into this goofy person?
Well, I mean, to be fair, she is still serious about schedules, but it's like, I don't know where this whole, you know, that's just classic 7 and 8-year-olds laughing at butts. Like that's what they do.
Just a total third grader, you know.
Right.
Just
you mean with your butt?
and then how she tries to get you to say it, right?
Right. Like on what?
So, what are you sitting on?
What are you sitting on? What's that?
So annoying.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is in the new normal. So I guess we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about why you should still be on that treadmill when everybody else gets off, and what that really means. My name is Dominic Lawson.
And I'm Kenda Lawson.
And you're listening to The Startup Life. This fresh coat of the Startup Life has been sprayed on nice and smooth by Wagner and the Flexio Series of paint sprayers. Startup Nation, my wife decided she wanted to rehab her childhood home. The goal was to fix it up and invite a nice family to rent it out. We knew one of the biggest jobs we had to undertake was painting. However, from the walls, the cabinets, and even the siding outside, it was going to be a big task. As entrepreneurs with a company to run, we knew this was going to take up a lot of our time, which is why we decided to get a paint sprayer. And after much research, we decided to go with the sprayer from the Flexio Series from Wagner. Startup Nation, these sprayers are top-notch because of its flexibility to paint or stain walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. It's 10 times faster than using a paintbrush which was a big selling point for us. And you can paint or stain right from the can. It's also easy to clean in 5 minutes, and being great for indoor and outdoor projects, a paint sprayer from the Flexio Series clearly needs to be part of the arsenal in your garage. So if you're ready to stain your deck, or like me, fill your daughter's request of a bubblegum pink room, up your game with a paint sprayer from the Flexio Series by Wagner. Take it from me, your time will thank you. The Startup Life is powered by Ladder. Startup Nation, as an entrepreneur, you are the engine that powers your business. We have had many entrepreneurs on the show, from those that played Division II basketball, quite a few Ironman participants, and even an NFL quarterback. And the one thing they all have in common is that they know getting early morning workout wins leads to business success for the day. However, it's super important what fuel you use for your workout to get that early morning success. And that's where Ladder comes in. Ladder is a sports nutrition company founded by LeBron James and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Unlike other supplements, every batch is tested by a third party that is trusted by all major professional sports organizations, including the NBA, NFL, MLB, and more, to verify the highest standards for quality, but more importantly, safety. Ladder's goal is to help you unlock your best in any situation. Right now, that means access to special offers and expert advice from their community. Personally, I like superfood greens. Not only does it include the most essential nutrients that are hard to get in your diet, like magnesium, zinc, B vitamins, and vitamin D, they also included the Rodelio root, which helps keep you healthier when stress is high, but also it helps support immunity according to many studies. Use code BETTEREVERYDAY for 30% off everything site-wide at ladder.sport. That's BETTEREVERYDAY for 30% off at ladder.sport. So maybe you're not trying to be a 4-time league MVP or a 7-time Mr. Olympia, but you still need the tools to elevate your health that elevates your business. So go with Ladder and prepare to get better every day. All right, Startup Nation. So let's continue. So before, the earth just turned upside down, we would go to, as a family to the local athletic club and, to get a workout in and stuff like that. Our 8-year-old Zoe, she would, go to the children's center.
Dance around.
Yeah. Dare not call it a daycare. She'll get upset about that. You know how she gets.
Daycares are for babies, Daddy.
That's true. That's true. But we would go to the athletic center, and I would like to get on the treadmill. Like, I'm not a runner, right? But I understand the importance of, getting cardio in and stuff like that, right? So I would get on the treadmill and what I like to call bust a clock. And this goes back to what we were talking about, Will Smith at the top of the show and stuff like that, and what that means to me and stuff like that. So I would go and bust a clock. So how you turn the treadmill on, right? And it already just starts with the timer, right? And I'll just let the timer go. And I think it goes to, most of them go to 99 minutes or something like that, right? So I'll just go 99 minutes. And so I'll be on there and just walking. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to music. I'm looking at, the TV screens and stuff like that, if they're working, because, Tennessee weather, right? But anyway, I would just get on there and I would just go. But as I'm on the treadmill, I would see people, who are already on the treadmill when I get there and they'll get off, and I'm still going. And then I'll see new people get on their treadmills because, there's treadmills all over the place, right? And I'll see new people get on their treadmills, and some will walk a little bit and they'll get off. So they'll get on their treadmill, and then they'll get off for after a few minutes. And then my favorite are the people who get on there and just go full speed. Like they put the treadmill on what, 12 miles an hour or something, right?
For 7 minutes.
It's for 7 minutes, right? And they're like a rocket ship, but they get off, right? But as I'm on this treadmill, I'm just steadily moving, same space, 4 miles an hour, just strolling. Still getting the workout in, still breaking a sweat, this, that, and the other. And so, as I'm looking at all these people around me on their treadmill, it just reminded me of podcasting a whole lot, right? Because there's so many people, especially now in this pandemic and this new normal, I got to start a podcast. And, especially with Joe Rogan getting $100 million from Spotify. Now I really got to start a podcast, right? And to be fair, it's not just the lay people. It's celebrities doing the same thing. They see Joe Rogan.
Of course, which is, also disheartening to the lay people.
Why you say that?
I don't know. It's just like you see these names getting in, and you're thinking, what kind of possible voice could I have amidst all this?
Right.
And the answer to that is a really important one.
For sure. And so it just taught me a lesson in that, you can get on a train or you can get on some type of trend or whatever. But it's still important to stay the course and be gradual with your growth. Like, you don't have to get out here, whether it be podcasting or on a treadmill, and just go full guns a-blazing. Like, you can slowly and methodically, as a taskmaster, and achieve your goal. You know what I mean? And I know what some people will say, right? Well, Dominic, if they get on the treadmill, they just want to do that workout because, to get that, that cardio burn real quick and stuff like that, which is fine. To each his own. I get that. But I think for me, it's not that I'm still on the journey, still moving forward and stuff like that. I think what's most important to me is what I've become on the journey, right? Like, I've had more time, going the whole 99 minutes on the treadmill to think. I've had the whole time on the 99 minutes on the treadmill to evolve, right? I mean, think about it. Like, we're sitting here in our kitchen right now, and we recorded episode 4 in the office over there, right? And we got that Blue Yeti microphone. And now we're sitting here with what, $2,000 in recording equipment sitting on this table?
Yeah, and the Yeti that we haggled and wrestled over buying at the time is just kind of sitting in the corner.
And but the thing that Yeti built this show.
That's true.
Let me be clear about that. That Blue Yeti microphone built this show. That without that Blue Yeti microphone, this show ain't what it is right now. That's
true. I'm probably gonna get it bronzed for you. Like, it's never, like, clearly it's not going in the trash.
It's not going in the trash.
It holds a place of honor.
You put it in the trash, we getting divorced. Like, I'm calling a divorce lawyer that day.
All right, fair. So mine is cigarettes and yours is technology.
That particular piece of technology.
Okay.
But my point is that, like, on your journey of entrepreneurship, on your journey, on your path, is like, you're going to see people like that. You're going to see people who are going to, like, they got, like, they've raised like $10 million and they're going to hit the ground running, and they're their 12-minute person on the treadmill, like, flying by. Right. But what are they learning? How are they evolving? Like, I was talking to Marcy Harris, right? She's a startup founder out in Silicon Valley the other day. And she talked about how there's plenty of people in Silicon Valley who are literally here today, gone tomorrow. And they've raised like billions of dollars. Not 1 billion, but billions of dollars.
But they're there. That's the sucky part of all this, right? They're just long enough for me to come across the post about them on Instagram or Twitter or something, right? Just long enough for me to get it in my head that this is what has to happen in order for me to be successful.
Exactly.
And if that's not happening, I'm not going to be successful.
Exactly. And so, like I said, like, when I'm on this treadmill, I'm like seeing all of this. I'm like seeing these people, just like, doing these spurts. They're spurting, right? But they're not marathoning. They're not like in this game for the long haul. And so that's what 200 episodes means to me. It's like, it's the ever slow. It's the cliche of the tortoise and the hare. It really is. It's like, I care more about the process, and I'm becoming something else. I'm becoming something else in the process, and I can feel it. Right. And honestly, people are starting to, like, see that. Right. And that's why we get the opportunities that we get and stuff like that. Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, and we talked about this, right? Like, there's a guy who started his podcast around the same time I did. He started around the same time I did, 2016. At episode 76, he was like, I'm out.
Right. And it's interesting because you're, of course, still here, but you were a fan of the show, which means
I was a big fan of the show.
It was great content.
Right.
They were great ideas.
Right. Like, or my guys, I don't want to put them on blast, but the guys I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Like, those dudes, they started before I did. Amazing entrepreneurs, amazing, podcaster. But like, there are these amazing entrepreneurs, these amazing startup, these amazing podcasters, and they got to episode 100. It's like, I'm done. Like, this ain't working.
But see, that's kind of the problem with the images, that you have in success, that it comes so
Right.
quickly. It's just like, okay, this should have been popping. Or I had it in my head that this is going to happen by now. And it's an interesting thing, those benchmarks that we set, especially when they're not based on, they're not based on anything. Just this idea that this is where I'm supposed to be.
Right. Like, where does that even come from? Like, supposed to be.
Oh, again, and you talk about, like I said, those people who are, they're sprinters, right?
Right.
But they're there long enough for me to get this picture, right, on Instagram about, like, hey, I just got all this funding, that sort of thing. And then, of course, like, the exit is quiet.
Right.
Like, the entrance makes us last, but the exit is always quiet.
Right.
And so it can be really difficult when, like, those are the stories that you hear proclaim loudly, and then you just don't, you don't get the other parts of the story. It's one of the things I love about the startup life and being able to do this is just like, you get both. Like, you're a great interviewer and you get both sides. You get the whole story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just that part that brought you right to the wall, and you have that decision about, like, whether to walk away from it, whether they get off the treadmill or not. Right. And then how did you decide to stay? How did you decide to keep moving? Maybe it's just a matter of, like, instead of, I know I said 100, I'm gonna just do 101. And then, for all you know, that 100, like that one additional episode. And I actually think that is actually true as far as the algorithm, right?
What's that?
Like, isn't it, like, we've noticed some things as this has gone along, that it's just like, sometimes a certain number of episodes, it's what, after that number of episodes, and I think 100 is one of them for like some platforms, right? Where it's basically like, literally 101 will catapult you in the way that they do the rankings and stuff like that.
It's like that cartoon with the dude digging for the diamonds or the gold. I've seen both ways, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, you stop right before you get to the diamond. It's like literally right there, right?
But there's no way to know it, right? There's only one thing that you can know for sure, which is that if you stop, you'll never find it.
Right. But, also when we do the marathoning, when we bust the clock, when we just go the 4 miles an hour, not the 12 miles an hour, you start to understand and think about being intentional, right? Because we talked about the young guy who had 306 episodes. He's done. And so it got to a point where he didn't get what he was looking for. And so it's like, whether that, he never really had any big sponsors because that's what he wanted, because he said that's what he wanted, and he never really got there. He wasn't intentional. I guess, he thought, he was going to build this thing. Like we talked about, he was going to build this thing and they're just going to come
and be discovered.
And be discovered. That's not how this works.
Yeah, there's too much content out here to just believe that that's going to happen.
There's too many businesses out there for that to even happen.
I'll speak to this because I feel like this is something people like me kind of struggle with. I'll say that. I am a person who just feels like I'm going to build something great. I'm going to do a great job, and then the word's going to get out there. But it's really difficult for that to happen when there's so much. So many words out there, there's so many results when you Google something, that sort of thing. So you do really have to be an advocate for yourself.
You do.
And you almost have to have, like, going back to the metaphor of being on the treadmill, you have to have like this playlist, right? Whatever it takes to like build you up and keep you moving. Right. And you got to enjoy the work, I guess, and the journey.
Oh yeah. You definitely got to enjoy the work and the journey, but you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional about the moves that you make, and so, and that's what being on the treadmill has taught me. That's what being like slowly grinding has taught me. It's like, it allows you to think and focus and then like, radio's looking for content. What if I just offer them, this? Hey, this sponsor has a pretty cool, this brand has a pretty cool product. What if I just offer some ad space just for the product? Not a check, but just a product, right? Hey, these people have books. I mean, they want to talk about their book, right? They want to sell books, right? Why don't I just ask them to come on the show and talk about their book? Maybe I get a free book out of it.
Yeah.
And so it's just important to be intentional. You not just be out here just to be out here and just thinking you're going to be discovered. You about to say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the intention. Like when you're on the treadmill, do you set like little benchmarks for yourself or little almost like rewards in your head if you reach a certain point?
No.
Okay.
I don't really do goals. Like the thing is like a lot of people have this think like, you're trying to be famous or something along those lines. Right. But I just look at it as like, or make a lot of money from this or something like that. Right. I'm just like of the ilk of do the work and all that stuff comes with it. It's not like that's what's important, because I think if you're chasing that, that's where the problem comes in a lot of times.
But at the same time, I guess, you have to be intentional about sharing your work with people, There's no real way for them to know about the work that you do to find, like I said, to find a sea of things.
You got to pump yourself up. You just do. You got to do that because and
I guess that's what I was saying like earlier. I am a person that's just like, I'll just kind of quietly do the work and I'll try to do it really well. I'll put content out that I'm proud of. And I think people will find it and they'll see it and, it'll just happen intrinsically and that sort of thing. But I think sometimes you have to make a decision is like, this is important. It not only is important for me to do, I think the reason that I want to do it is because it's important for people to hear.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's denying. And I actually think this was episode 100, right? 100 about being selfish, right? That was a word in my soul. It's like, okay, that's very fair. Just like at a certain point, if it's important and if you're good at it, then you could be denying the world. You could be denying somebody who needs what you have to offer,
right?
And it's just, it is a different way to think about it,
Right. And it's just, I just think everybody has this thing that you can bring to the world. And honestly, I mean, eventually it does get easier to kind of, break out of the rut and people cheerlead on your behalf.
Right.
But before then, and the thing is, and it's different for other people, right? Like we talk about all the time, people like to be entertained and fed. So food and entertainment kind of speaks for itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
And so you don't have to work as hard. Now, the work on that part comes to work because there's so many people trying to entertain and feed you. But
you standing out a little bit in the crowd, finding your own kind of
right.
Sort of spin on it, that sort of thing.
Right.
But it's funny that you say that. It's it's very, very evident on Instagram, right? It's I take these photos, really colorful photos of food that I'm eating and that I cook and that sort of thing.
Right.
But then I also post these thought ideas and experience and, that sort of thing. And then which do you think get more likes?
I mean, the food and stuff.
Of course, right?
Of course.
Because it's easy to consume. I know exactly what it is.
Right.
It's visually appealing and that sort of thing. So it's you have to just decide if the ideas and if it's important enough to get out there. And
also understand that sometimes you're going to need something that people already know to give you credibility to give so you can have that whole transference. You have to be okay with that.
That's true.
It's, and that's okay. But I think my ultimate goal is Startup Nation, you got to stay on the treadmill. You got to stay on the treadmill. Bust the clock. Stay on there for 99. Put it on 3 miles per hour, 4 miles an hour, and just keep going. Because what you will find in the process is that you're slow cooking. To kind of stay on the food thing, right? You're slow cooking. And how many times have we seen stuff that slow cook tastes better?
It does.
Right? It's just sitting there simmering and marinating and percolating and all that stuff. You got to stay on the treadmill, Startup Nation, because go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't want to get too deep off into the food metaphor, but what's really happening is a lot of it's actually getting broken down.
Right.
And it's funny that, it's getting broken down, and that's going to happen to you as an entrepreneur, right? There's all these little things. When a machine breaks down, when you really need it to work, of course, that doesn't sound like a good thing, but there's so much that you learn out of it, how to get it fixed, who can help you, all of these different things. And then just sometimes you just learn how to get along without it. And so it's better at the end, because everything is broken down, you know what I mean? And it's reconstructed and becomes something different. Right. Like you said, like you're somebody different by the end of it.
And that's what's most important. As the journey is more important than the goal. And that's why I don't really do goals, right? It's like what you're becoming in the journey is more important than that goal, because you're becoming this different beast, this different monster, right? And the competition don't even know how to handle that. It's like, I can't, like when the competition sees you, when you're on that treadmill or whatever, and you're simmering and getting better and molding and stuff like that, the competition doesn't know how to handle you. They don't know how to attack you. They don't know how to beat you, right? Because you've been intentional. You've been thinking. You've been grinding. You've been evolving, right? You can't do that sprinting. You're moving too fast to think. And that's what a lot of people, on an entrepreneurship do. You're moving way too fast to even think. Or you're so one track minded, like, oh, I got to raise money. And that's why, Marcy was saying, like, there's a concerted effort now in Silicon Valley to focus more on building than raising, more on building revenue and building a company than raising money. Because some people are out there in Silicon Valley, or not just Silicon Valley, but like all over, what comes in this golden era of entrepreneurship, they're just wanting to raise money to be bought out, or just to say, I raised $1 billion. What? So you can buy a ping pong table in your office? Right. That's not a revenue generating activity.
Well, I guess it speaks to the intentionality. Like, what are your intentions? What are your goals?
That's sprinting.
It used to, I think that actually, going back to the treadmill idea, I think the other thing that you have to do is like not begrudge other people who have already put in the work. Like there are some people who can get on the treadmill and sprint for an hour. Right. But you don't know, like it takes years and years of running in order to get there.
I'm so glad you said that. Because that's why I want to transition to the next part of this conversation. And so we all know about Malcolm Gladwell's book in the 10,000 hours, right? It takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something, right? And so a lot of people, I think that was in May, right? They see Joe Rogan get this $100 million deal, right?
And so I think like start podcast by Friday, $100 million, right?
Right. Or at least
$1 million,
Right.
Start slow.
Right. And so, but the thing is like, that's why you said like now he can get on the treadmill for an hour, like, and be on speed 21 because he's been, because people forget that his podcast has been around for 11 years. He's been making content for 17 years. Like for the 6 years that predates the 11, he was making like video content, him and Jamie or whatever, right? Or some other guy before Jamie or whatever the case may be. But he got that 100 million, May 2020 is not what got him $100 million. It's the 11 years before that.
Right.
And so, and it's not just like lay people, like, there's like a whole bunch of celebrities started podcasts when he saw that too. Right. But my point is that like, when you look at a Joe Rogan and you look at my girl, Lily Singh, I love Lily Singh, started, yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was a little jealous. Okay. A little professional crush.
I just mean look, I know. She started her YouTube channel 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now she's on a late night show. She comes after, she comes after Seth Meyers, right? 10 years, 1,000 hours each year, became an expert at her thing. Gary Vee's the same thing. He talks about all the time about how, you didn't hear about Gary Vee really on a regular basis until like a few years ago. but he was making content for 11 years. So 11 years Joe Rogan, 10 years Lily Singh, 11 years Gary Vee. They put in the work. They can get on the treadmill and sprint 21 miles an hour for 99 minutes because they've been doing the work. And also they can think faster because they're at a different speed. They're at a different level than the rest of us. And that's how you have to think about your business or your podcast or that thing you're chasing, right? If you think you just fit to roll up off the couch and just like be amazing, that is not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And honestly, you may even hurt yourself
trying to get there faster. So is it an idea? It's like, okay, is that a good rule of thumb? Like if you're not prepared to spend 10 years chasing it, you know what I mean?
Right.
You have to ask yourself if you really want it.
Facts. It's and the crazy thing is, and it's not look, nothing in life is like supremely guaranteed. Let's be clear about that. But if I told you, if you put in the work for 10 years, that your next 50 was going to be like super straight.
Right.
Like, come on. And even still, 99% of people would not take that bet.
But it's kind of interesting. It's like we always have this conversation that you're not the type of person who will put off consequences. You know what I mean? Like if you could spend $1 million now, but you'd have to pay for it and go to jail. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, would you just enjoy the moment? You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like it's literally the exact opposite mentality, right? I'm willing to accept the consequences now, but the thing is, like, it always comes out. And if we're being honest, that more than balances out. You know, even if we assume that Joe Rogan made $0, you know, in the meantime, which isn't true,
right?
Either, but off the podcast, right? Because I know he refused sponsorships when he could have accepted them because they required.
It wasn't the sponsorships, like people were trying to buy him out,
right? I was gonna say it's like okay, but I thought it was like. Yeah, not sponsorships, but he refused money he could have gotten, right? Because it'll require him to have given up at least some ownership, if not all ownership of it, right?
Right.
And so it's like, no. So let's just assume, like, from the podcasting, it's just like it's 11 years of just making content that you're not being paid from. But I mean, if you go back and average it out now, I mean, that's a nice lick every a year. That's $11 million a year.
You're in the black.
Yeah, I think you're well in the black.
You're
right?
more than but it's funny
and so it's
how
just
that works,
it's one of those things of being, you know, there are people who it's like I'm gonna do this for today and I'm gonna live it up and I'm gonna accept the consequences for later. I'm gonna put them off and I'm willing to deal with that. You have to imagine that some people, you know, commit these really crazy crimes, financial crimes and stuff like that. Like, you know, eventually you're gonna get caught, but it's worthy of it to live for 6 years. You know what I mean? Like a king, than it would be to struggle for 6 to 10 years, right. And then for the rest of my life have money that nobody could take away from me and have this freedom and this lifestyle, you know. And so, I mean, I do think it's a matter of like personality and priorities, but yeah, going back to intentions. You're just being intentional,
like, you know, and doing the work on the front end. Because that's what it is.
But I think you do have to, like, there has to be a mindset going into it that's the reality. When you're not, I think when you're not prepared for the idea of I'm gonna have to do some work on the front end, right?
Right.
Then it's gonna set you up for failure.
Right. You know, and also having, you know, the willingness to be great. Because I don't think everybody has that. Because I talk to a lot of people in a lot of groups, you know, social media groups, physical group. Well, not so much now, you know, social distancing. Wear your mask, Startup Nation, social distance. Get that in there. But like, there's a lot of people who are not willing to be great. There's
a lot of people who want to be great.
Yeah, but they're not willing to be great. You know what I mean? Because like they say, you know, well, you know, you should be podcasting because for the love of the game anyway. You should be podcasting. You know, you should be making money from podcasting anyway. You should be doing it because you love it. See, that's somebody who
you should get paid because you love it,
right?
And that passion and that love comes out in the form of like great content.
And somebody will listen to this and be like, you know, that is about the money. No, what I'm saying is that like you should be willing to be as great as you humanly possibly can be. And the byproduct is money. The byproduct is fame. The byproduct is all that other stuff. But no, like people, you like that stuff is just byproducts. You know what I mean? Like if you want to do something for the love of the game, great. That's fine. If that brings you happiness and joy, because that's ultimately what you want. You want the happiness. You want the joy. That's fine. You're totally that. But if happiness and joy is, like tangible stuff or a certain lifestyle, then you have to be willing to be great. You have to be willing to be great. And you have to be willing to sacrifice certain things. You know what I mean? And so, and like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not trying to get on this rant, but like people like that are just frustrating. They just are. Not from a standpoint of like them derailing you. Like, case in point, like, was in a podcast group and they were saying like, like I say, you should be podcast for the love of the game. Or, you can't make no money from podcasts unless you're a celebrity anyway. Like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm making money from podcasts.
So even when you can give them a counterpoint and an example and that sort of thing, we talked about this. We talked about the reasons why, which I'm not going to repeat, but like people will just come up with a reason, right? They'll come up with some exclusionary kind of principle or rule to hold up to say, well, I can't do this. You know what I mean? And that's true. That just means that's like a commitment to not being great and not being the best and not being successful, because I can always find an excuse. I can find a reason why, you just, you know what I'm saying? Instead of just using this as an example, it's like there's not that much of a difference between, me and you and I.
None.
We had zero platform. Right. We literally started the podcast in the middle of like trying to build our company, and slowly have made inroads in education and and locally as well. But there's no platform that we were associated with. This would have been way easier if we could connect ourselves to a certain, big name in logistics and shipping and that sort of thing, or something that you, sort of just literally when you mention Memphis, like these ideas of these companies come to mind, but we didn't have any of that. So that's gone. That excuse is gone, but there would have been something, something.
Right.
It's like, oh man, you just successful because you in the military. They always get military people,
Okay. It's a commitment to failure. That's what it is. Like you may not want to say it, you may not want to admit it, but that's what that thinking is. It's a commitment to failure.
It's certainly an expectation of failure. It's like you expect to fail. But and that's the thing. I think.
How is that different?
It's not. It's not different. That's the thing that I do think we need to.
I know it sounds. I know it's what you're saying sounds better.
It sounds better, but I also think like people will understand it better. It's like, I don't really expect to, this to become anything. Well, it's like, okay, if you expect to fail, you certainly aren't preparing to succeed.
Right. And
so that you're right. Like they are the same thing, but I think that part has to be said in order to make the connection between what you're really saying is. That you are not preparing to succeed. And, I think that's the thing about us. Like, depending on who you talk to, like, we talk to people who know, or at least have some idea about the inner workings and the work that we do and, the work that goes into it. Right. But then there's other people who it's weird how you can have like all these different ideas because it looks different on the outside. So you have other people who just feel like everything we touch turns to gold. And it's like, no, there's lots of failed projects and experiments and, different things along the way. And it's just like, man, I wish that were true. No, I don't wish that were true. Because if that were true, we wouldn't have become something else.
Right. I mean, who remembers selling before sunrise?
I do, and I actually thought it was pretty good.
There's been countless, things that were like, like we threw some stuff. We always say
that's true.
Throw some stuff up on the wall and see what sticks.
Because the counterpoint,
I can assure you that wall ain't full.
The counterpoint to selling before sunrise was pedagogy after dark,
right?
And like I currently have people. It's like, hey, when are you going to make another one?
Right.
So it's just like some stuff sticks, and it was based on the same premise. Let's get out there. Let's engage with people. Let's let's make a bigger presence in terms of media. But the point is, not everything succeeds. But the truth is, at the end of the day, it can come off as like, oh, well, either, you're golding and everything turns to, everything you touch turns to gold, or that there's this cockiness. Because I do think there's a level of confidence that comes with that. Not that you're going to succeed at everything, but that I have failed lots of times and I'm still here.
Right.
And so I think sometimes people mistake that. You know what I mean? They mistake that for the idea that I don't expect to fail. No, I thoroughly anticipate failing, possibly multiple times.
Right.
But what I fully understand is that my commitment to success, our commitment to success, at the end of the day, because you're not going to get off the treadmill, we're going to end up where we want to end up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And so Startup Nation, as you move forward in your different fields of endeavor in your startup path and your entrepreneurial path, stay on the treadmill. Stay on the long, boring, grinded out, unsexy, treadmill. Because what you'll find is that you'll find that success that you're looking for. And you'll find a way to keep that success and sustain it and, and grow it even further, because you're going to see so many people and you can't fall for that trap. The trap on Instagram where, this people, they've done the same thing. They've raised $1 billion for you, the idea that you had. What are you about to say?
I was just gonna say it's interesting. It's like, go back to high school. You ever see those people? It's like you're taking a test and then they finish their test so quickly it makes you doubt yourself.
Right.
You're
Them
like, crap. And am I dumb? Did I get something wrong? Like, how does he finish all the time? And it's like half the times, you talk to that person afterwards. It's like, hey, how did you finish? You must be really studied. Nah, I just marked anything. And so it's like this whole perspective that you have about what you should have been able to do by this time and all the rest of this stuff just goes out the window. So you gotta play your game.
Oh, exactly. And even if the opposite is true, you go back and ask that kid, hey, what did you do? I studied my ass off. Yeah, that's
true too.
I studied my ass off. And so it's I played.
I didn't doubt my answers.
And I what's the thing we always talk about? I played the game I played the game in practice like it was the real thing. Mm. I went hard in practice, in this case, studying, or in this case, learning how to edit episodes or wherever the case may be. Or, you if you go hard in the practice, you go hard when the lights are on. And so that, it's the same thing. And Startup Nation, look, I'm not saying this path isn't not going to be difficult at times. But I think it's supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be boring. But I believe, if you stay on that path, you're going to find what you're looking for. Think about Jim Carrey and the $10 million check. Writes himself a check, $10 million. He's going to cash it at this moment. Thing just sat in his wallet for years and years and years. And then right before that date came up, cashed that $10 million check for Dumb and Dumber. It's like what you want in this universe, what you want in this life is out there sitting there waiting for you. It's just a matter of, do you want to walk on that treadmill towards it? So here's my final take. Don't get off the fucking treadmill. Walk with intention, walk with purpose, and understand that what you're becoming on the treadmill, because you could easily say, well, Dominic, I'm on the treadmill. I ain't going nowhere. What you're becoming on that treadmill is more important than the goal. You're becoming this monster, this beast, this thing that your competition is not going to be able to even understand or even fathom. And on top of that, they won't even see it coming because they're too busy trying to go 21 miles an hour in 7 minutes and damn near dying when they get there. And honestly, and Kenda was saying, that exit going to be real slow, real low. You ain't gonna know. And you should know, because you should be so focused on your journey, your path, right? Stop looking at the other treadmill. You should be focused on what you got to do. So I feel like if you do all these things and you take this path, that you have the life you want and the life that your family deserves. So that's going to do it for episode 200. I want to thank my co-host here.
Thank you for having me.
My beautiful co-host, executive producer of the Startup Life, Kenda Lawson. And you know what? Let's do this thing again. I think we should do this every 100 episodes. We should just do this together. Not saying that we should do any other episodes together, but we should do episode 100. The 100, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
Century mark episodes together.
Okay.
I think that should be a thing. Until then, Startup Nation, if you have an idea, be about that life. The Startup Life. If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a great way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is there in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or even on your Facebook timeline or any other platform you like to get your podcast. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. You can also listen to the show on the Startup Life Podcast new website. There you will find the all-new startup blog, where I write on many topics that are interesting and helpful to you on your path to entrepreneurship. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life.